What's up, everybody? Pierre Coyne here, joined by the man himself, Chris Bartley. What's up, man?
What's good? What's good? It just feels like 12 hours ago we were actually just connecting and talking about the willingness to receive.
Listen, yeah,
Man,
12
love that
hours
word.
ago. Man, listen, we are here for another edition of Worship and Word Conversations. We want to thank you for joining us. I'm going to invite you to check in with us in the comment section. Our discussion this afternoon, or whenever you're watching this, some of you are hanging out with us live, some of you are watching the replay. We're talking about the title is Holiday Hurt, but it's really about how we navigate the holiday season. Now, some of us are having an amazing time with gifts, and we talked a little bit about that last night in our conversation. And some of us struggle because there's a cycle or a loop that we go through every single holiday. So we want to shed some light on that today. So, Chris, man, tell me real quick, how are holidays in your family? Like all the way back from Thanksgiving to New Year's. How does your family rock?
Yeah. Um, I appreciate the traditional I guess you can call them traditional values, man. Like they're things that we do, like when we know that Thanksgiving is coming, we'll start preparing for Christmas, the same thing, especially when you're younger. All the cousins used to come together. We used to go to the auntie with the biggest house. We would all be there waiting until Christmas morning. So we've had some really great traditions. And I think the awesome thing is now that we've got another generation now after us, there are things that we didn't do at one point, like Christmas trees and stuff. Like, we're older, it ain't really that deep, but now we're doing it again. Not more so for us, but more so for that. And I see that. So that's really cool. So it's a fun time. I think it's fun. If I had to use another word, maybe warm, because for a lot of families, man, it's rough. But for ours, guys, it's actually the opposite. So this whole idea of getting together, it's different now, because everybody's more dispersed, not because of COVID, but just in general.
Yeah.
But our core unit has still preserved, I think, some of the traditions that we've done throughout the years, which you get older, you look back and you're like, those are the things that matter. Those are the things that I appreciate the most. So yeah, man.
Yeah, we invite the rest of you to check in, who are watching with us. We're having a conversation about the holiday season. We'd love to hear some of the traditions that you and your family share during this time. Go all the way back to Thanksgiving. My wife's from Trinidad, so they start holiday celebrations in October. Go as far back as you need to and give us some insight on how you're navigating the holiday season, and especially how you're doing it in the light of COVID, because that's like a whole thing that we're all trying to adjust to. Man, having this conversation between the two of us, man, I know it's going to be real good, but man, it's going to be really great because we're bringing some other people on to have this conversation with us, and we are joined by
yes.
Real.
Yeah, I'm gonna behave myself. I promise you I'll behave myself today. We're on worship and word, so I'm gonna keep the atmosphere right.
Well, it's worship and word conversations.
Okay, so even that, and then I shared it on my Facebook, so my parents are gonna be watching. So I definitely got to I gotta behave.
Listen, remember, like at church, like back in the day, when maybe when you were a kid and you would have like regular church and it was all kind of stilted in a certain way. But then on certain afternoons, like your pastor or the elders would have like a rap session where sometimes they could get real and sometimes it got a little bit too real, I think. But we'll have a rap session of sorts in our conversation this afternoon. Aaron is checking in with us. Aaron and Charlie, thanks for hanging out with us. You guys were with us about 12 hours ago as we had a conversation last night about receiving. And then Carlos says, I'm happy for everyone that enjoys and celebrates the holiday season. I do my part to support those who celebrate, but I just try to endure. We're going to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
This afternoon, man. Gotta bring my boy on as well, man. Gotta bring my boy on, my brother from another mother, doctor. We gotta have at least
I don't understand. How come you brought Pat on first?
Why not?
Oh, you saved the best for last. Save the best for last. I understand.
Man, whenever you're doing something, you stack. You start off hot. So we had Chris at hot, and then you got to close hot. So we brought you at the end, and then in the middle, if it don't work out, we still got the close.
we need a doctor anyway in the house. We always need a doctor in the house.
Okay.
Facts.
That should have shaved first, but we good.
Yeah, it's no.
Dang, you know what?
Don't start with me. Don't start with me.
Listen, did you see his face? Did you see his face?
I have something to say.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's deep inside too. You see his head is shaking too. Like, Pat, I can't wait till this is over. I'm gonna tell you what I want to tell you.
I wish we could invite y'all to the after we go off live and we talk for a little bit. We wish
That's what's really gonna happen.
we wish we could invite you to that. So let's jump in. Donna and Elaine Elaine and Donna are watching their new normal without our dad for the first Christmas. We'll be spread out in many locations in this environment, praising him anyhow in Jesus' name. Man, I think that's a good segue into, you know, I got two daughters, 10 and 12, and the holiday season is a big thing for them. Like, they love it, all of the energy and all of that. So that's one side of the spectrum. The other side is that there are people who, you know, they've buried parents over the last year or 2 years, or maybe even 10 years ago, and that joint is still fresh. So how do we balance for y'all, for all of us, how do you wrestle with, like, you got family that really wants to celebrate, and then you got tough spots, like you remember people you lost. How have y'all worked with that?
Well, I guess I'll start off with just personal experience. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. So we did talk about me just, you know, being able to be at family members' house, or, you know, the other way around, and we're just enjoying it. But I remember being homeless and being in the Bowery rescue mission. In fact, you might know where that is, and having Thanksgiving dinner with a whole bunch of other guys just like me, and then camera crews are coming in, and we're like, nah, bro, like this ain't no time to be filming. We just want to be us, like, you know, just with all of the, and trying to find the camaraderie in other people that are in our situation. You know, that was, in other words, I couldn't have done it alone even then, right? Even though it was still to an extent a lonely experience. It's challenging. I remember watching Coming to America in a lobby, you know, in the BRC in Greenpoint, you know, and here's the thing, with a whole bunch of other guys too on Christmas. That's all we had, you know, and there was no Christmas dinner per se. There's probably a little something extra special, like some mac and cheese, you know, something a little extra. But outside of that, you know, you realize that it's really, even with the people that you don't know, those were the people that you were able to enjoy. And the crazy thing is, the majority of them have memories of what a good Christmas looked like. So it wasn't like it just came from nothing. So we're in one predicament, reflecting on, man, I remember when, you know. So having experienced, in a sense, both sides of the spectrum, for me, the commonality was people. Whether I knew them or not, those were the experiences that allowed me to kind of, as Carlos put it in the comments, to endure. So yeah,
I think this is my first Thanksgiving and Christmas coming without my grandmother, and our Christmas, our Thanksgiving and Christmas parties were big. So not just COVID not being able to come together, but you know, and she was 99 years old. She would have been 100 in February, but without walking with a cane. I mean, she was always, so we always had the grandmother dancing in the middle, you know, during our Thanksgiving and Christmas time. But so I understand what it's like now to go through a season without the matriarch of your family, and you try not to think about it. That's really where you try not to think about it. But it's difficult. It's hard to think about. I didn't get to Christmas yet, but we made it through Thanksgiving, but we could always blame COVID for that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And not really the death. So replacing it with COVID because everyone's not around. Yeah. So it's a new thing. It's difficult, but I'm replacing it with certain things to see how the Christmas part of it is going to go. So it hit home this year for me.
And shout out to Pat Graham. Hazel McDonald Thomas says, my Pathfinder son, who just walked by and said, is that Pastor Graham with LEDs? only young people put LEDs in their background. Man, we got to give him a pass because he is the youth director. So,
Hey, listen, I got that from David Defoe. Okay, I went to his office and I saw this is true. And I got the box sitting right over there, the ones he told me to get. So thanks for keeping me young, even though these grays will not go away. Yeah, I got LEDs in the back.
Yeah, you could dye them. Don't worry. One of the things we hear the president-elect talk about it all the time. This idea of an empty chair around the table.
yeah.
And in grief work, oftentimes the holidays are the most difficult times because they're people that support us, they're people that love us, that get overly involved with their own families, so that we forget people who have lost loved ones during this time. And so it is difficult because, grief and loss comes with that duality, man, that I'm happy that I'm alive, but yet I'm sad that someone's not here. I'm glad that someone's not suffering, yet I miss the stories. I miss the opportunity to sit around and embrace them. And so I know we'll talk about it a little bit more, but, giving yourself the space and the grace to sort of grieve those that you've lost and realize that there's nothing wrong with it. And then for those of us that are in this new normal, nothing is normal for any of us at this moment. Yeah. We're all dealing with COVID-19 and not being able to celebrate and get together like we normally would. So in some way, we're all experiencing some amount of grief that's compounded for people who can't get together with their families to grieve the same person, all kinds of things as far as loss is concerned, that it's important for us to talk about.
Man, I had a double whammy. So last year around this time, we were getting ready to pack up and go to New Jersey, and my youngest daughter came down with the flu, and like the car was packed up. We were ready to roll out. She came out with the flu. We went to the clinic. They were like, "Nah, she got the flu." And then 2-3 days later, our family was the sickest our family had ever been in life.
Wow.
All right. So, yeah, this ain't like one of those podcasts, but listen, we were the sickest we had ever been in life. So some of y'all understand what I'm saying. And this year, right? That was 2019. Now it's 2020. We can't, for 2 years in a row, we have not been able to pack up and go see family. And it's been like, we try to rock it with Zoom calls and FaceTime and it's just like, this general, like I don't want to even be bothered. So before you said something, grieve the loss of it. Like, how do you do that though? Yeah, Pim, I think we had COVID last year.
Yeah. And the way she just said it, y'all had COVID, Pastor. And like it was like the common thing. Y'all had COVID.
Yeah, like I don't know how did you wrestle with that? Like, it's been 2 years in a row for us that we've been. It's the four of us, and I love my family, and I want to see more family, especially during the holidays.
You deal with it it's a personal thing, right? And so we all grieve differently. And we all have to give ourselves permission to grieve. Some will cry, some will be angry, some will be disappointed, some will be upset. There's a range of emotions that come into it. The thing is to experience them. A lot of times we think that by pushing out the emotions that we feel, it's going to somehow help us, when in reality, that's what hurts us. Wow. The idea that we can stay busy and try to avoid the fact that we're in pain. The idea that we can distract ourselves with work to say, okay, I'm not going to sit down here and I'm not going to cry and take the time to remember this person. The heart doesn't heal itself by ignoring it. The body remembers. The body remembers the pain we go through. And so if we don't sit and emote and take the time to cry and take the time to talk and to take the time to say to somebody, yo, listen, I'm not okay. And it'd be all right. Yo, I'm suffering. I'm struggling. Stop when people ask you how you're doing. Stop saying I'm okay. Say, no, I'm hurting and it sucks. Right. I'm hurting and it's painful. Right? Because that ability to then enunciate it and talk it out, it moves it from the abstract into sort of reality. I no longer have to just experience it and carry that burden by myself. I now release it, and we're not going to get too metaphysical, but I release it into the atmosphere. And that honesty helps me begin the process of healing.
Okay, so I got to follow up on that before Pat jumps in. You said be honest, right? Now, some of us don't want to be honest, or we're apprehensive about it because we're like, okay, what if the other person brushes it off?
That's what I was gonna say.
Like, or on the other hand, like, what if we don't want to extend ourselves? Because I say, okay, Chris, how you doing? And Chris is like, man, I'm not feeling good at all, man. This is rough. And I'm like, oh snap, I'm stuck.
Yep. Or take that somewhere else.
How do you work with that? Because some of us are like, I don't want to be caught in that spot where I ask somebody how they feel, they drop it on me, and now I'm trying to wrestle with how do I respond when I crying on the phone.
But I think, Pierre, I think what Dave said was not necessarily for the person to answer, more or less for the person to say it. And I think that's, and I gathered that what Doc was saying is that once you start the process by admitting to yourself that you're not okay, Dave, there was a book that you told me about called, what was it? It's about okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not okay.
It's okay. I'm not
Megan
okay.
Devine. Yeah.
Right. By Megan Devine. And what I recognize is that if we're truthful to the game, if we're truthful to what's happening, it's the beginning. We'll never reach the beginning if we're going to self-loathe, right? Or if we marinate in our own crap, that's what ends up happening when we get to those lows and we hit those lows. So, Dave, Pat, how you doing today? Man, I can't stand work, or I can't stand this. Okay. He's not going to answer me back and be like, oh, what happened? We're not therapists for each other. We're friends. Okay. So, true friends would hear you say that and not even take it to the next level. They understand that you're not okay. You're not hearing that. But what I wanted to say is that I think that once somebody says to me, hey, how you doing this Christmas? Man, I miss my grandmother, but I'm going to make it. That's the beginning of being able to move ahead with something instead of hiding it and saying, yeah, man, I'm good. Everything is cool. Yet but you're burning inside. And the whole vacation, the whole holiday becomes a drag. You're making it a drag because of the way that you're feeling. So I do agree that it's the first step in it. The second party doesn't have to go into what it is, because the majority of the people, Pastor says this to me all the time. Dave says, people don't know what to say. In grief, if you don't know what to say, go ahead. You might as well finish this now, Dave. If you don't know what to say,
say nothing.
Say nothing. Say nothing, because you're going to end up hurting the person and end up hurting a relationship anyway somewhere down the line because you don't understand or you're not there. So just don't say anything.
Sorry, go on, Chris. Sorry.
No. Well, David, I have a question for you, because dealing with grief, does everyone have to get to the acceptance stage in order for? In other words, does it happen every year, right? Or can Christmas 1 be, I'm going through the bargaining stage, Christmas 2? How does that work? Because I think I realized that even in previous relationships, I don't really learn much about who I am or how to exhibit certain things until I'm in another relationship. Like, oh wow, now I'm in a space to exercise those things again and to understand the facets of who I am in this particular context. So is it the same thing with holidays, where after the holiday season, we're talking about a few weeks, a couple months, that's it, back to normal? And then how does that affect the grief cycle? And I know that there are different types of models too for that as well. So yeah, break that down, man, because
you're going to touch a nerve in me. We grief therapists, when you start talking about stages, because grief is not predetermined, nor is it prescriptive. Everyone grieves on a personal level. Now, we don't, as a culture, understand the notion of grief. That's why when we say to people, I'm hurting, they don't know what to say, because oftentimes we're triggered by our own pain when people are in pain. Yeah. And so because my pain now comes to the forefront, I want to talk to you about the loss that I suffered. Because I can't deal well with yours, right? So oftentimes when people talk to us about their losses and their pains, we get triggered because we're carrying our own stuff, right? So one of the things about stages, stages show a some people have anger, some people have bargaining, some people, they have to get to acceptance. A warden has task models. There's all kind of the stuff on grief. But the important thing is, no matter what it is that you're going through, know that grief is personal. It's your own journey. All right. So whatever it is, feel free to experience the grace of whatever it is that you're going through. You experiencing it to your own degree, to your own level. Stop trying to find a prescription to deal with grief. Stop trying to try to understand what you're grieving. You're grieving because your heart hurt. You're grieving because you lost something that was important to you. There's no need to understand it beyond the fact that life sucks. This person died and I'm not the same. And the fact of the matter is, because I'm not the same, I have to orient myself to create this new life without this person that's always been there. Right. And a lot of people don't understand. They try to walk this line of trying to get back to something when there's nothing to get back to. If that person is gone, I now have to build something new. And so, give yourself grace to experience it on your own. And then by all means, there are some people that don't know how to handle grief. There's nothing wrong with saying, listen, I'm just going to share this with you. And can you just listen for a second? Can you just give me your ears and not necessarily your response? Tell people what it is that you need. And you may not understand that you need someone to listen, but the number one need that people tell us when they grieve that they have is for someone to listen, because people do so much talking to try to encourage people with foolishness. Oh, the person's in a better place, or God knows best, or all that kind of stuff. None of that brings the person back, so it doesn't help.
Or she's 99 and a half, and 99 and a half. She lived her life. I've heard that so much. You just want to do something that you shouldn't do. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry, but
it's tough. It's tough for people like me that think in frameworks, because I'm always looking for a formula or a pattern. Yeah, it's difficult. I live and die in a sense by routines and frameworks. And if I don't, and that's why for me, I think grieving took a while to even embrace in this latter half of the year. Boohoo crying. I'm like, what is this? This is not a part of the prescription. What's going on? So yeah, Dave, you hit it on the money for me. Wow.
I remember doing the eulogy for my grandmother, and everybody's crying and you're not. You're doing all the directing of trafficking, but you're not crying. You're driving back and forth, you're not. Then you get home, weeks pass by, and you hear a song. That you know how it is, Southern Caribbean. It doesn't matter where you are. There's a family song, or there's this is one song that everybody jumps up to and get ready to dance to. And wow, you say, crap, she's not here.
Yeah.
And it's like, Dave kind of said it. It's like, oh, wow. I mean, she's not present. You know what I mean? I think that, that what we need to do, and I know this is going to sound crazy, is that's when I started to more develop, okay, is God really close by? You know what I mean? I try to use my spirituality because I don't want to drink. I'm trying to use spirituality because I don't want to self-hurt. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm using the right terminology as far as self-hurt, but I don't want to replace it with something that ease a pain to ease that pain. And I think that that's one of the problems that always happens during this time. You hear about suicide. It's funny because suicide is supposed to, kind of take the rise right about, is it October, November? Suicide is like high during that time. But there are many who are trying to find their way out of what it is. Can I just transition something really quick? It's not just for deaths though, because some of us suffer with winter depression. The sun starts setting at 4 o'clock. You got less daylight, less vitamin D. I think there's, I forgot the word for it, but there's like the seasonal depression that people,
effect.
That's it. That's what it's called. And it's coming in the Thanksgiving, Christmas season, so on top of what could be happening, you still got to deal with the chemical side of it, where the loneliness, the crying all the time, not even knowing why you're crying, and all of these things are happening because of seasonal depression. So it goes both ways, not just family not being around and COVID dealing with this, but we do have people who have these chemical imbalances. If it is chemical, is it chemical? I believe it is.
I want to jump to
I
this.
think it's compounded it too. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I want to jump to this question because I think it's relative to what we've been talking about. Rose, this is the question: how do you check on someone who's always on the spot or seemingly got a victim story? I want to address them in a way that helps them focus on the blessings of the season, not the sadness.
Okay, I'm gonna give my non-doctoral answer. Yeah. So I had a brief stint in a behavioral health position, and the first week or so when I got in, meaning we don't call them clients. David, you probably know, you've heard of clubhouses, so individuals who deal with chronic mental illness, but we don't use clinical therapy, so to speak. It's really like church. It's a member-driven program where they do everything and we kind of facilitate that. So there's like 4 employees or 4 facilitators to like 100 people. So it's really designed where they are the ones that kind of help each other out, and we're just there to kind of oversee. And obviously we still have to document things and put everything in like EHRs. Point is, had somebody sit at my desk and didn't even know what she was dealing with first. I didn't even look at the chart or anything. So I'm just thinking, she's just really sad. I'm like, oh, well, all you need to do is next day come, same issue. Next day come, same issue. And I'm just like, so, when the director comes and he's like, okay, here's what you need to do. Some things you won't be able to solve certain things with just giving them the advice from a chemical perspective. It's not going to work. Right. So for me, just to answer Rose's question, sometimes there's not much that you can do, but just be there for that person. And sometimes to just hear the same story. I'll give you another one. So there's this one individual, she was very irate. I think narcissism was a huge part of her diagnosis. I think it's narcissism. Maybe that's not the term. Y'all will correct me later. One day, it was like 3, 4, 5 hours, and sat down with every piece of creative work that she's ever done. And she has never treated me rudely or terribly ever again, or felt as if she was never heard, or, because I took the time to sit down through all of it. And it's chronic mental illness now, but that changed the perspective of her, just how she treated me after cussing me out every day, to just be able to listen. So I would say that, in certain instances, I don't know what, this person may particularly have, but just from that perspective, what I was dealing with, man, it sounds so cliche, but I just listened and I stopped trying to give the right advice, because sometimes even if it is right, it may not be appropriate.
It's an art to listen.
To push Rose's question a little further, right? And just to add some more depth to it, right? It's okay that someone is overly involved with their sadness, right? If they're talking about a specific person, right? The way you provide help in that case, Rose, is to listen to the pain that they feel, but ask them in order to change perspective, not move them away from talking about the person, but to help change perspective by asking, tell me some good times you had with this person. What do you miss about this person? What did this person teach you? Or what did this person show you? Or how is it that you now live out the legacy of that person, so that you're not moving them away from talking about their source of pain? Because the talking about their source of pain is important. But you don't want them just to focus on the fact that they're not here or that they're not present, but focus on some of the good as well as the bad, not taking away from them the duality of human emotion. We have joy and sadness. They have to go together. I'll just add that to it. If they're stuck on sadness, then ask them about those things that will elicit positive responses, positive memories, funny memories, stuff like that to help them.
If you're just joining us here on Worship and Word Conversations, we're just chatting about how we deal with the emotions that come up during the holiday season for whatever reason. Sometimes it's the death of a loved one. It could have happened in the last few months or several years ago that comes back fresh every time we get into a holiday season, or it could be some other thing that comes up and disrupts how we feel about the holidays. If you're just kind of scrolling through and pause, we invite you to check in with us in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. I want to ask a question relative to another piece of sort of holiday tension, and it comes from the construct of, in some circles, there is a very legalistic, rigid, fundamental framework that some people deal with. So, this idea of that anything in celebration is worldly, is sinful, is against God. And then people grow up and then they have families and they're like, well, my parents taught me that anything that has any celebration that is not like quoting Bible verses is wrong. And now I have my family and I'm trying to deal with how do I navigate my family. And then you're wrestling with those tensions. I mean, we've all worked in some pastoral capacity and we've heard all the stories, a lot of the stories relative to that. How do you, because it's a lot, man. It's a lot. Some people argue they just want to say happy holidays and they are spiritually abused because they want to say happy holidays, and that causes some holiday hurt. So
ask Pat. He's the conservative on the panel.
he just said his grandma used to dance at the holiday party.
Yeah, I know, but he wear white shirts to church still.
Hey, you see, I told you he's gonna get me back, right? Somewhere down the road, he's gonna get me back for the beginning of the show, in the beginning in the green room. My parents at 12 years old, my parents came to us and said, "This is Christmas," and we weren't shocked, but we were like, "What?" They stopped giving us presents, but started to give us presents in a monetarily type way instead of putting up a tree and all of that. Hey, it's the Christmas season. We're going to make bread or we're going to make this, but here is money or something of that nature. So I know what you're talking about as far as that's concerned. They never stopped us because my parents were always at the same parties, but they wanted us to have the notion that Jesus wasn't born on this day or etc. So growing up in a conservative standpoint of that and listening to people, I tell them right off the back, it's hogwash, and I preach it from the pulpit, hogwash. And I tell them, don't come to church and tell us and meet with all of us and say happy holidays because we don't believe in Christmas, or put an X or this, that in front of it, but yet you go to work and you're in the Christmas parties and you're in this and you're in Secret Santa at work, but when you come to church, you're something different altogether. So I don't want to hear that. They've got me mad now. So, and the reason why is because I was in church and the last pastor comes to the church after I showed the church, a conservative church, where Sister White says that we ought to use the holiday, right, in order for the poor, to help the poor. And when these people saw it in the red book, y'all don't know what I'm talking about by the red book. We talking about worship and praise. But when they looked at the writings of Sister White, who some of them think is higher than the Bible, when she looks at it and when they look at it and says, "Oh, I didn't know she said that."
Right.
This dude, the last pastor, comes to the church during Christmas and tells them, he basically calls them
pagans.
Pagan. That's the word I was looking for. That's it. Call them pagans.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I had to use the whole year to bring them back to where it was because of let me tell you something. When we get to the kingdom of heaven, Jesus is going to bring all the Adventists over to the west side of heaven. And he's going to say to us, y'all made it so hard to get here.
Have mercy.
You made it difficult. I'm sorry. This is about something else, right? Hurt, right? So let me bring it back over. Real.
Hurt. So that's fine.
Yo, listen. Listen. I don't care what anybody say. Stop the foolishness. Evangelism is at its best during the holidays. Bringing families closer together is at its best during the holidays.
Yeah.
This is the time to heal hurt, or to begin, I should say, begin the healing of hurt on his holidays. I don't want to hear all this stuff about his Christmas is this, that, and the other. I don't want to hear about that. All right. If that's the case, don't do birthdays. Don't do. And when it's a holiday for work, go to work.
Don't burn the church. Mortgage burning.
The thing is,
Real pagan to me.
Rituals.
You started off asking us about celebrations as a whole, right? Not just, but if you believe that it is not biblical or not Christian to celebrate things, then you have not read your Bible.
That's right.
You cannot keep the Sabbath, because the Sabbath is a celebration about the culmination of creation.
That's right.
It literally is a weekly celebration, right? Don't tell me when David built the temple and the Spirit of God, and they brought all the instruments in and stuff like that. The Spirit of God came in there. It was so thick, no one else could even get in, that wasn't a cell. Come on, man, go read your Bible.
That's right.
Don't call yourself a Christian. You don't believe that you can't have fun and you can't have celebration. Get out of here. You going right on to hell with everybody else.
That's right. That's why the people of God are depressed during this time, because they don't know which way they need to go in this. Celebrate life, celebrate that he was born. Go back to, if you don't read the Bible, at least go back to what's the book? The book with the whole story of Jesus by Ellen G. White. Come on, y'all, help me. Come on. What's
Desire
the book?
of Ages?
Desire of Ages. Just stick yourself in the first chapter of Desire of Ages. Emmanuel, God with us, and celebrate.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
No. You're on point. So one of my boys, he put a post on social media a few weeks ago, and one of the responses that he got was highly, not just legalistic, but it just felt so bitter. And you know what his response was? It was the best response, and I don't even think he was trying to be sarcastic. I think it was genuine. He said 3 words, maybe it was 4. Who hurt you, bro?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
As we're dealing with holiday hurt, like a lot of that comes from, and I want to tread lightly or carefully in this with what I'm going to say. I have some friends who, they've been raised in Venice all their lives, or maybe it wasn't in Venice, but in a strict household.
Yeah.
And now they're in an age, like, we're not talking about 20s, we're talking about later than 20s, we're talking about 30s, we're talking and now there's this desire to want to break free and to celebrate, but celebrating the wrong things. It's almost like kind of going on the other side because of the hurt or maybe regret of not being able to be free in this celebratory, down to the Sabbath. Now it's like, well, now since I didn't get to do that, I'm gonna just go ahead and celebrate any and everything. And I think that there are these 2 camps or these 2 spectrums where you got the people who they're not going to celebrate nothing and be bitter till they die. And then you got the people that is just going to just worship every and anything because they ain't get to celebrate nothing. And I think the central, for me at least, this perspective is the feeling of hurt or maybe even regret for those 2 camps. And I don't know, there's probably other perspectives, but it's a huge one because I hear them like being upset. Last one. So there's this one lady, love her to death. I'm not gonna even say which church she's from, mine. And she was never the way that she used to be, apparently, until her husband died. After the loss of a loved one, like the legalism and the why are we singing this and why are we dressing like this, man. And when somebody explained to me why and how it happened, I became more empathetic. I said, okay, I get it. Doesn't give her a pass to be bashing people in their own happiness, but I see now why. It's because you are hurt. You lost somebody who made you feel, whatever the case is, alive and now you're projecting that, well, since I can't be happy, nobody else can, even though that's not what you're saying, but you're saying it in your actions. So,
but Jesus warned us about this, didn't he? Didn't he say when he, in his whole woes to the Pharisees, woe to you Pharisees who clean the outside of the cup, but inside the cup is all just moral flabitudes. He told us about this. Don't worry. You're so busy focusing about the external stuff that people see you do or don't do, that inside you don't understand you're hurting people. That inside your disdain for celebrations and for Christmas has everything to do with your judgment that you're passing on to other people. Has everything to do with your own Like I've never had more. Every time I have an elder in the church, right, that is one of these staunch drivers of reproof and rebuke, the very first thing I say to myself is, oh, this dude right here is a big sinner, and I wonder what his big sin is that he can hide on the outside but that is prevalent on the inside. And sure enough, every time the good old elder that wants to talk about other people and talk down to other people and throw the manual at somebody, they got something real big, real dead bodies in their own closet that they're still
Man, not
dealing
even
with.
skeletons. He said not even skeletons. He said dead bodies. I mean, he said keep them in the freezer. Good night. No, but Pastor's right about that. You know, he's right about that. And what I see the most of this, and it's hard, it's really difficult right now because we followed each other, so we probably talking about the same type of elders. So
that's right. We did pass it the same. Yeah,
we passed it the same. We passed it each other. But it's true. You hide all this hurt. How do we say it, Dave? In school, hurt people. Yeah. And that's why when you came out with that, Chris, just now, where your boy was like, yo, you know, what happened, bro? What you know, what's really going on with you? I do think that the season that we go through here is introspection time also. I think it's time for us to be able to, and the reason why I say us is because everybody has the choice to suffer or to celebrate. You have that choice to make. And host, let me say it this way. Anytime my wife and I go on vacation, when we're coming back, even if it's Florida, whatever, anytime we're coming back home, there's this strange silence from her. She has this strange silence. Matter of fact, a couple of times I caught her weeping. Weeping is not the word, but caught her, crying. And I'm like, man, what's wrong? You know, you go to a place where you don't have to worry about work. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about that. You still got to bring your husband along. He's a drag, but you still got to worry about all that. Then it's time for you to come back home. There's a certain sadness. Some people anticipate what it's going to be like after the holidays instead of living in the moment. Wow. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's the reason why there's a lot of people who don't like the holidays, because they don't want to live in the moment of the holidays. They're not depressed. They haven't lost anyone. They just don't know what it's like to experience happiness. You know what I mean? They don't know what it's like to experience. Dave said it earlier, a celebratory type lifestyle, to see everyone happy and to know that you're going through something. No, live happy through that thing. Yeah. So we have to learn how to celebrate even through our grief, or we have to learn how to celebrate even through our sadness or whatever it is, and learn to take one day at a time and replace it with something that's going to make you happy. So I made that point about Natalie because there are people who look at coming back home or what's after it as something that's negative, instead of bringing the happiness of the holidays into January, into February. You understand what I'm saying? So most of our depression or most of our sadness will come through that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. So my question is, how do you do that? So, Defoe, when you're talking about not trying to be metaphysical, there is like, let's be real. I mean, God created energy, he created vibes,
That's right. That's right.
But I think that's why he's also told us, don't look at certain things because we are human and we're just dumb. So we'd be like looking at zodiacs versus the person who actually created the person with the personality, right? But how do we tell people to, because what you just said, Pat, about bringing that happiness and then bringing it with you, how do you do that in a practical way where maybe some people need to envision it? Maybe they need to put happiness in a sense on a piece of paper in a jar and then transfer. What do you do? Because
Pastor Dave, let me hit this really quick. I'm like you. In the beginning of this, you said you are very, I forgot the word you used. You were very
oriented around frameworks. Like
around frameworks, right? Let me tell you, in order to get I'm gonna get to the happiness part, but in order for me to get my spirituality together, I recognize that I'm awake. I have my watch, and my watch tells me my movements and all of that kind of stuff. I'm awake 14, 15 hours of the day. I sleep 7 hours of the day. I'm looking at the framework of this. I have to choose every hour whether or not I'm going to be spiritual or not. It's a choice. All right. I'm not trying to be Pastor Graham. I'm trying to tell you, I have to choose every day, every hour, whether I'm going to be a sinner or I'm going to go ahead and just keep God in the forefront. It's the same thing with happiness. Okay. You only got 24 hours in a day. It'd be good for you to sleep at 7 hours of the day. I know Pastor Dave is up like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how he does it. I just don't. I can't explain it, but I'm looking. I don't know how he does it. I have to sleep 7 hours of the day, and I choose whether or not to be happy or not. We have to be able to make that adjustment in our lives, that happiness just doesn't come to us. It doesn't work that way. We have to choose to be happy. We have to choose to be spiritual. We have to choose to sin. We have to choose whether to be mad. We have to choose whether to be anxious. I'm using the word anxious, not depressed, because I don't want to use those type of words, but we have to choose to be anxious. So what I'm saying to you, Chris, is that, yeah, I know sometimes you put it in a piece of paper, you hang it up, I'm going to be happy today. Happiness is something you choose. And if you decide that you're not going to be happy today, then you're going to ruin the holidays for everybody else. And that's where loneliness comes in, because at least you're thoughtful, not for it to happen to somebody else. So you stay home, and that's where the cycle begins, a yearly cycle. It just cycle out like that you just continue to be that way. So what I'm saying is, the bottom line that I'm using here is the word choose to be happy. And I think that if you choose to be happy, then that is the beginning of good things to come. This is my thought process to it.
So you can actually choose that. Nice. And the reason why I asked that is because there are some people who are watching live or the replay of this that are like, wait a minute, what do you mean I can choose? Like, what in the midst of everything, long story, short story, whatever, you trying to say I can choose, I can select off the shelf of life. I can pick happiness.
Look like Pastor Dave about to say something, but let me just say this. I was going to be on I missed your show last week. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to call it a show. I missed your ministry last week. But I recognize that I choose to have anxiety. I know there's anxiety, but I choose that. The reason why I choose anxiety, because that's what I'm comfortable with. I know the go-to, even though it's painful, I know at least what comes with anxiety. So if I'm dizzy, if I feel like I'm going to fall out, if I'm sweating, if my heart palpitates, at least I know what it is. So I choose that, to stay with that, because anxiety became my best friend. Now I got to find a way to leave anxiety to the side and depend on something other than anxiety. My problem is that I don't know what it's like to depend on something else that's not anxiety. I'm more comfortable with anxiety. So now I got to push that to the side and now depend on God. Now I got to depend on being happy. So when somebody cut me off on the street, instead of giving them the middle finger, I have to choose to say, hey, it was a mistake. They probably older. They probably missed something. They probably looked down at their phone or whatever. And here comes the calm. That's what I mean by choosing happiness.
Yeah.
Instead of, yes. So let me answer that question. Yes, I believe that all you got to do is choose happiness, and the personality or the characteristics of happiness will follow. That's me. I don't know what Dr. Dave feel about it. But
He ready.
Yep, I see him. Tight lip. I see him.
Anything to say. You can choose happiness, says Pat Graham.
or Sigmund Freud, or one of those.
Of course,
guys.
you can choose happiness. Of course, we can choose happiness, but it's also the choice, the necessary choices that get us to the fulfillment of that initial choice that we make. So, how do I change perspective? How do I question the negativity that I see? How do I develop the mental wellness to say, okay, I can look at the one side of this coin, or I can flip it over and look at the other side as well. How do I make room in my mind for alternative reality? Right. Yeah. So as Pat talks about anxiety, I tell my clients all the time, you can keep whatever is useful to you. So if depression is useful to you, then keep it. If anxiety is useful to you, don't try to get rid of it. Keep it. Learn to work with it. But if it's not useful to you, if it's debilitating, if it's causing you not to be productive, if anxiety causes you to be more cautious and careful when you need that, keep it. There's nothing wrong with it. Let's learn how to manage it, control it. But yeah, happiness is a choice. Joy is more so a choice, because joy is internal. Happiness is sort of external. Like happiness can change based off circumstance. Joy stays present with us based off an intrinsic value that or how we see the world. So, no matter what exigencies are happening around us, we can still have joy. Happiness is sort of behavioral, tangential, but we can still choose it. Yeah, we can look at it. We can open up other perspectives, other ways of thinking. Yeah, sure.
Now Pat said something. He was talking about, I intimately know anxiety. I don't know what, things are, existence is apart from this thing that has become a close friend. There are a lot of us who make these maybe quick suggestions to people, maybe hyper spiritual suggestions to people, and we're saying, get away from that. But we, maybe because we're not trained, or maybe we just don't have the understanding, we're not pointing people to another thing. We're just simply saying, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, or you're still worried about that after all these years, or kind of all the things that we say to disrupt their reality, while at the same time not pointing them to anywhere else. And it's like the limbo piece that people struggle with. And I remember you saying this to me, Defoe, maybe a couple of years ago, that one of the things that you do as a clinician is that you can't destroy a person's framework and leave them without one, without having built another one. So,
yeah, they're defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
You can't tear down a defense mechanism without erecting something in its place. Defenses, they're erected to protect us, but they're also the thing that holds us back, ironically. But they do protect us. But even with the anxiety thing, right? Pierre, Chris, Pat, this is that's what Jesus had in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what was going to happen. And there he is ruminating on what he knew he was sent there for in the first place. There's nothing wrong with having anxiety. Anxiety is natural to human existence. The fact of the matter is, anxiety can't cripple us. We need to take it and then use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, and I love these I don't want to call them dualities, but even we tend to leave out the other half of Jesus whipping out everybody. Well, he didn't whip people, broke tables and whipped out animals, but we don't see the other side or pay attention to the other side. It was right after that he's healing. So he's angry, righteous indignation, but in the same context, the very people that he was upset about, who they were exploiting, he's now healing those people. And I think that this validates that, when you said earlier too, David, you said it's okay to be angry. Now this is now when you're talking about managing, because now it makes sense, right? Anger management. It's not anger throwaway, anger elimination. There are people who have a disposition to just be rage, just have rage, and then it's how do you though contain that so you're not incinerating a house, but you're fueling a rocket, so to speak. I just poor example, but you know what I'm saying? And so I think of the same thing that maybe you've done this before, but to see the entire spectrum of all of the feelings and emotions that Jesus himself had. I think too oftentimes you only limit him to like the one part of the emotional circle that's just peace, joy, love. But my man was sad. He was upset. I can even use the word jealous, not in a covetous way, but yeah, jealous too. And I think that even the way that we experience Christianity, or even the way that we have maybe been taught, or even the way that we look at who Jesus is and his dispositions and how he's acted or how we think he has acted in certain circumstances. When we read the red letters and we're thinking he's saying, no, peace, be still. He's more saying, nah, Negro, y'all need to calm this down right quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, we then take that and say, well, this is how he would be, or this is how my church says that I need to be as a person. So no, I can't be angry. Yes, you can. No, I can't be sad. Why not? How do we work with that? Like this and yeah, you can take this, Dave. How do we work with the fact that we have been nurtured into particular emotions, dispositions that should be suppressed versus ones that are celebrated, encouraged. And if you dare cross over into the other side, because God forbid you're not human anymore, you're a Christian, then you have sinned. How do you deal with that?
I'm gonna throw this in before Defoe talks, man. I think part of the conditioning is that we are taught just don't express it in public.
Mm.
You can be whatever, but from Sabbath morning from 9 to 3, you gotta hold it together.
So we're taught to be hypocritical. We're taught to be actors. We're taught to be hypocrites, actors on a stage, as opposed to authentic and with ourselves. That's why our communities don't grow and our communities don't nurture and foster true relationships, because we spend so much time being fake in them. But that's neither here nor there. Let me get to so like what Chris was saying, right? Is we tend to box Jesus in to make him more palatable to us. So because we don't manage emotions without sinning, because we don't see the fact that I can be strong and yet also I can be emotive. We don't see the connection between those two. So because we don't see it, we can't imagine the Savior that we try to create in our likeness as opposed to him creating us in his likeness. We can't create our Savior in ways that we can't relate to him. And so we don't see it. But the truth of the matter is, man, listen, God made you can be angry. The Bible doesn't say, the Bible says even in marriage, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. He didn't say don't get angry. He said don't go to sleep with it, right? We see Jesus getting angry. We see Jesus getting upset. We see Jesus being unhappy and disturbed by his disciples that can't ever seem to get it right. We see him at the tomb of Lazarus weeping, and people saying, well, he couldn't wake up his friend, but he's out there healing the blind, giving the blind their sight. We see it, right? And so I know people are asking these questions about joy. So I think we let Pat talk about joy, but let me be quiet before I lose my job.
I'm gonna stop asking questions.
So, question.
Go ahead.
I want you to take the question that
that's
if you just scrolling, I see the numbers changing. Just to let you know what's happening here. This is Worship and Word Conversations. It's our Saturday afternoon discussion, and we are talking about really the emotions that come up during the holiday season, dealing with grief. How do we find joy and happiness? How do we deal with relationships and ideologies and all of that stuff? And it's just a casual conversation. So we invite you to check in with us and let us know you're watching. So yeah, that.
I think we're looking at the question by Shannon, I believe, right? That I'm being real. How can I choose to be happy if I don't know what happiness is? I have a couple of mentors, and he hates when I say this. My brother, Dave, Armina, these are people in the field of counseling. And in order for me to learn the right languages, in order for me to understand it, Dave, despite the schooling that's going on, I have to learn how to be a good therapist, a good listener, a good practitioner is how we call it. So what I have to do now is engulf myself around those type of people so that my language structure could move from pastoral to therapy. Therapists, they're different languages. They're not the same. I thought it was going to be the same, but it's not the same. I'm answering the question as far as happiness is concerned. When I hang around people who are dismayed all the time, or they're under the weather all the time, everybody has somebody who's always the party pooper, or always somebody who's raining on the parade. You have to find yourself away from that. Stop watching the news all the time. I'm giving some practical stuff here. Sometimes you have to speak up in order to put it in the atmosphere. Like Dave said before, you have to speak up. I don't like this. Sometimes I'm sitting in a meeting with Pastor Defoe and others, and I stay quiet in the meeting, and because I don't want to say what I really want to say. Who leaves the meeting unhappy? I leave the meeting unhappy. That's right. While while Dave, which he hasn't gotten fired yet, so he's okay, can say whatever it needs to be said, and he leaves. Here's the word I'm going to use: content. Hold on, I'm coming your way, Shannon, with it. Content. To be content brings, that's what it is. The problem with humans is that we think of the feeling of something, happiness being a feeling, but you have to plant joy inside in order to be happy. You have to plant joy as a seed and water it in order for you to exude what happiness is. Sometimes you got to put those other things to the side that makes you remember what I said, and Dave said this before, and I think Chris also said this. The problem is that we're used to downtrodden. We're used to dismay. You know, we feel comfortable about sad. We feel comfortable about things that's not going on in our favor because we know how to react to that. Now, all I'm asking you to do is to plant the seed of joy in your heart, switch it over, and now come out of the shadow and go into the sunlight, or come out of the shadow and go into the light. And then you're going to see everything that's positive around you. Chris, you said it. When he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, or I think Dave said it, he knew what was going on. He knew he was going to die. He knew that this was the final thing. Lord, let this cup, he could take B, he could take A, I mean, he could take B, he could take C, but he didn't, because he knew where he was going. What I want you to understand in this case, you don't know what happiness is? Find it, because it's out there. The world is terrible, but it's not that bad. I know it sounds crazy. Look for the positive things in life. Stop dealing with Trump, and stop dealing with politics, and stop talking about all the negatives, and find yourself going to the botanical garden. Go to a museum, listen to music that makes you happy, watch something and sit down and laugh about it. We don't do that anymore. Now, you notice I didn't say nothing about God. I didn't say nothing about God.
Happiness is tied to our moments, right? And let me just share this with Shannon real quick. And for those people who find it difficult to find happiness, right? Most of the things that we worry about come from our past, which we cannot change, right, or our future, which we cannot do anything about except for to act in the present, right? Yeah. So I recommend to you, Shannon, to walk outside, or to do, or to figure out a way to put everything in your past out of your mind, and all the worry for your future just in a moment out of your mind, and take a look at what is around you, and experience what is around you in the here and the now, in the present, right now. Be present minded. And I guarantee you, if you don't worry about your regrets from the past, or you don't hold on to your worries about the future, and you allow yourself to see where life is right now, you'll find happiness. And you'll realize that if you have breath, you're happy. You'll realize that if you can open your eyes and you can see the sun, or feel even the coolness of the air on your skin, without the past, without the future, you'll find happiness. Because happiness, the reality is, happiness is found in the moments that we pay attention to, the moments we don't allow it to pass us by. Joy is different, but happiness is found in the moments.
Hold on, Dave, you said it, and I thought you were going to say something funny but true. I thought you were going to say, go outside naked. I thought he was going to say that. And even though I know I'm not going to tell you to run outside naked, I'm saying free yourself. Get yourself, and I stopped because I said, you notice I didn't say nothing about God.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to just leave it there. God is freeing. He allows us to be free. Our problem is that we have grown up with the notion that God locks us into a corner, or God locks us into a single belief system. That's negative, to put us somewhere. You know, God, people say we're prison. The Bible says we're prison to God. That's the word he could use. I ain't in no prison. I'm free. So now during COVID, I keep the Sabbath the way God really wanted me to keep the Sabbath, and not stuck up in a church for 10 hours straight working.
Hey. That's Pat that said that. That is not me that said that.
He turned off his camera. Look at that.
Not associated with Patrick Graham.
But I mean it. On Sabbath, now I could walk in Virginia. I could walk the path and smell the air, and I'll be careful. I'll tell you, I went to the beach on the Sabbath, so disfellowship me right now.
You
As long as you had on your white shirt, you'll be fine.
You better believe it. You better believe it. My white shirt and my tie. You better believe it. No, but even though Dave is talking about that, that wasn't happiness for me. White shirt, white shirt. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I became no. When I met the real Jesus, now I know when I'm sinning. I'm not sinning against the church. I'm not sinning against what my parents taught. Now I found happiness in Jesus, that if I do something wrong and truly have done something wrong, I'm not going to die tomorrow because of it. I find my happiness in Jesus. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when the air is going, and this is true, when I step outside and I can breathe, I'm now saying to myself, wow, this is beautiful. I get this. When you look at COVID and 500,000 people are going to die before, maybe 1 million before this is all over, and you're still living now, don't look at COVID as a negative. Be like, praise God that I'm alive. Look at the positive side of things instead of looking at the negative side of things. And to tell you the truth, that's what I depend on God for now than ever. I don't do my devotions to stay alive. I don't do my devotions to become happy. I do my devotions because I am happy. There's a difference now.
Hey, listen. So, man, y'all hit on a lot of things. So when I used to, pre-COVID, used to work downtown, I realized that what kept my sanity was leaving the building and just walking around. Simple, right? And I realized I had to do it multiple times because y'all know how I'm probably borderline crazy, but the mind is running so quickly that if I don't and it's a choice. I can sit down for 10 hours straight in the same spot and get it in, or choose to get up, go down the elevator, go outside, and just let it go. Just let it go.
Christians need to
listen, man. Yo, so hey, okay, all right, Pat. So this goes to the next piece, because what I realized was, okay, now that I'm home, I'm not really getting outside as much. Quarantine doesn't mean that you can't go outside.
That's right, you can.
It was until like not too long ago, like a couple of months ago. We in 8-9 months of this thing, right? 10 months. Not too long ago, I said, Chris, why don't you go outside like you used to? Like what shifted where you don't even have a desire to get some sunlight, and it's right there.
Get a dog.
Listen, man, that's a whole nother mindset right there. And when I decided to just go outside and just sit in the backyard, praise God, that's a blessing in itself. Most people don't have backyards. To just sit in the backyard and just watch. I'm looking at the same butterfly that's like dropping whatever they're dropping, hopping over the hedge, then coming back and I'm just like, wow, what are they doing? But just being in the moment of receiving that there's one creature that God has created that apparently is busy at doing something. I don't know what it's doing, but I was still enough to see it. And then it got even deeper. So now I realize that at a certain time, you have a telephone pole, birds will flock on the telephone pole. Never was aware of the fact that at the same time, no matter if the time is forwards or backwards, they are always there. And then this is crazy. And then it's like
in the same direction. Go ahead.
And then they're all chirping, and all of a sudden it just gets dead quiet. And then they all leave. I'm like, oh, who initiated that? Just being in the presence now. And that, in a sense, made me happy. Happy in the fact that I was able to recognize that there's so much life happening around me versus what's behind the computer screen, Yeah. So here's the next thing. We talk about this idea of God being putting us in a prison, Pat. When you were talking about some Christians they need some medicinal substances in order to because you know what? Hey, you know what? Paul says, I am so free that I choose to restrain my freedom in order not to be a stumbling block. We don't come from it in that way. So we're still a prisoner, and then we decide in a sense to still be even more prison bound so that we don't offend somebody else. But Paul is operating from the fact that I am already joyous, content, and free. But I realize that my freedom might jack some of y'all up. So go ahead, Timothy, even though circumcision ain't a deal, go ahead and take care of that right quick, because there's some folk that don't understand this yet. And I think
I ain't dealing with them. I'm gonna be happy. I ain't dealing with them. No, I'm gonna be happy and just go on from there. Everybody look at me. Yo, Pat. There was a time that I didn't drive my car to church because people said to me, your car was too fancy to drive to church, and it wasn't. By the way, and guess what? I stopped driving. Why should I be unhappy because you're unhappy? No, why should I be unhappy because you're not content? Man, forget about that. I'm not dealing with that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Stop driving Natalie's car. It was that car.
Yes, because your car is that beat up Toyota. That Natalie's car is the fancy one. Yours is that beat up old Toyota. Stop playing.
So here's my thing, right? I just want to say this. Paul brings it up twice in scripture, like chapters at a time. He's bringing up the weaker brethren, or those with a weaker conscience versus those who are stronger or more free. And I think that we miss the mark when we realize that we are choosing to be constrained and bound, but it's because Paul is like, and you're right, Pat, you're right. It's you. He says, for the sake of the urgency of the second coming, there are certain things that I'm going to choose to forego so that there are people who are not as free as me. But we take that and we misconstrue it and we feel like we have to walk on eggshells, not be as happy or not be as free. And I think that there's a balance. Paul was a free dude. He was so free. He was like, man, I wish I was single like me because I don't got to deal with them issues. That's all, right? And so I think that there is I guess going back to what David was saying with scripture, there's a grave misunderstanding with the life of Christ, with who God is, how he has created us to be celebratory, to enjoy just being in the present. And because of that, everything else is miserable around us, including ourselves. I would encourage someone to choose to be as free as not just Paul, free as some of us is on here right now. Right. And to say, I will only choose to restrain my freedom if I know that it's going to send you straight to hell. If I know that my freedom is going to offend, not even offend, because that's not the word that Paul even uses. He says, I'm restraining it because I don't want you to do what I'm doing in freedom, and you are offending your own conscience, which is then offending Christ. And I think that that's what we miss. He's like, no, I'm not walking on eggshells because I don't want to offend you. No, I don't want to be as liberated for then you to try to be as liberated as me, but that's going to mess up your walk with Jesus. If we can get that in our minds, I think that we might be able to understand what freedom is all about.
Chris, let me bring it to this. I'm putting up my Christmas tree.
Yeah.
As soon as I get off this, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what picture anyone takes.
Late, bro.
I don't care. Yeah, it's late. It's late, but guess what? I don't care. I'm gonna be happy putting up the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
I'm not buying any gifts. I'm giving them money. But I like the Christmas tree at night when I lay down next to it and there's the fireplace going and I'm listening to Sam Cooke or one of them old joints that's rolling. I don't want to hear from anybody. I don't want nobody to tell me nothing. I'm going to be happy sitting where I am with my Christmas tree. My Christmas tree is going to come down February 14th or February 15th. It come down when it want to come down. It go back up when it want to go back up. I'm just trying to tell you, live a life of contentment. I'm serious. Live a life of contentment. Do it for you. That's where it comes from. Stop tying ourselves down with what everybody else feels like we should be. You want to give somebody a gift and it's 25 cents, give it to them. Give it to them. Give them if 25 cents. Yes, if it's 25 cents and it came from your heart, give it to them. Don't have a problem with it. And if you don't want to give anybody gifts, don't give them any gifts.
Listen, when you stop, and the other thing too is, man, when you stop hanging around certain groups of people or communities, even if it's in your own faith,
family,
family too, and then you separate, right? And then you come back and you're like, wow, y'all still on that? We still talking about clothing?
Yeah,
y'all still on that? And I realize you have to be sensitive as well, because once again, it may not be as free, so to speak, as you might be, but but you can sense the for lack of a better word, the dichotomy between where you are, where you've grown to be, and where they are, and you have to be protective of that too. That goes not just for Shannon, but for all of us. Don't go back. Dip in love and then dip back out because it can bring you back.
Pastor Gregory Storm Brooks had said something that I think we got to address really quick. But before I do that, I'm gonna talk to what Greg just said there. It's good to see you, brother. But I had a church one time told me we can't put a Christmas tree on the rostrum. So I straight up told them we can either have the scene of Bethlehem or the North Pole. We'll have Santa Claus and Rudolph, or you'll have a Christmas tree. You can choose which one you want. And by all means, we had a Christmas tree. And if they had said no to the Christmas tree, I was bringing Santa Claus, Rudolph, and the elves all up in that sanctuary, and I would have preached right in front of it. Anyway, but Greg said something very important, right?
Hold on, I'm not gonna let him get away with that. He was my pastor.
It was the church that we pastored that I came to after you.
Okay,
Yeah.
and never mind. I thought it was another.
Exactly. And you know exactly that's what I told him, because we had that Christmas tree up there, didn't we? Did they have one before? I didn't think so.
No, sure didn't.
They would have had Santa Claus coming down out the chimney. I would have built the whole set, North Pole and everything. Anyway, so Greg said something very interesting, right? Greg said this. He says, I would probably point out that though it's hard to experience the here and now, when you haven't dealt with the pain of your past, they may need to find a safe space to do just that. Yeah, some of us, we're so triggered, and I thank you for that, Pastor Brooks. Some of us are so triggered, we can't find a way to even clear out the mechanisms that we need to clear out in our mind to deal with that. So in those instances, if you're dealing with pain, that's what makes it so hard for some people during the holidays. Can you imagine having to go to Christmas dinner and share collard greens and black eyed peas with someone who abused you? Can you see how, and you've kept that secret? Or someone who did something to you that, there's some deep-seated stuff that people go through with family stuff. And so Greg is right. You have to find a place to get professional help to deal with the sort of the pain of your past, the regrets from your past. But what we were talking about with practicing that idea of mindfulness to be happy is understanding that even those things that happened to you in the past, yes, I have to deal with them. Yes, I have to work through them so I'm not constantly triggered by them. But I also can pursue happiness in the present. So I want to thank my brother for bringing that up.
Listen, we've had a great conversation this afternoon on Worship and Word Conversations. We thank all of you for hanging out with us in the comment section. You guys kept it energized in the comment section for stopping and just sharing your thoughts with us. For some of you, it took a big step to even put some of these questions and even listen to our feedback. I want to thank my friends that they are Worship and Word alums. So they've been here before. You'll see them again. And we just want to wish you all the best this holiday season. Any parting thoughts, guys, before we?
I just want to know if David's going to sing before we go. Is he going to sing something?
No, my cup is empty, so I don't have any more courage. So because you were serious, Pierre, just for those people who are suffering this holiday season with grief, with loss, we're all experiencing some amount of grief. Give yourself some grace. Understand that you don't have to be strong. Being strong doesn't mean you don't cry. You don't have to do it alone by yourself. We don't grieve alone. Talk to someone, let someone know, listen, I need you to sit and I need you to listen to me. I need you to just be a heart with two ears and listen. Take the time to give yourself some grace and experience the range of emotions that you may feel during this difficult time.
Yeah. Chris, what you got? Are we out?
We out.
We are
Yeah.
out. Matter of fact, we're so out, and we so want you to find the space to talk and the time to process that we are not going to invade your calendar next week. We want to have that time to rest and to reflect. And because we can't replace the conversations and the prayer you need to have for yourself. So next weekend, we will not be here. We'll throw up a replay if you're desperate, but you won't be desperate because you'll be having some of these conversations that you really need to have. So, yeah. We out.